Welcome back to Seen and Heard Live. I'm Melia Bensussen, Artistic Director here at Hartford Stage Your Theater, and very glad you could join us on this Veterans Day. So it's very appropriate, we feel, and we hope you'll feel the same, to have this conversation center around a play that was made famous, actually, by war veterans, and more on that in a minute. But first, we want to say an enormous thank you for joining us, and also talk about, for a moment, about how since our reopening, we have thought a lot about how to reopen with a new perspective, keeping in mind, as always, Hartford Stage has its important civic role, but also trying harder to be a more anti-racist, and socially just organization. So in that context, we have started speaking about the land that we sit on here in Connecticut. And of course, there's a complicated history to all our lands around this world. In this particular context, we want to honor tribes that were here, the seized territory of the Mohegan, Matchatucket, Pequot, Erskine Pequot, Golden Hill, Paugussett, and Shagatoki peoples, and honor them and others who came here before us and who shepherded this land, lived on this land before there was a city of Hartford, and certainly before there was a Hartford Stage. So we're all struggling to make sense of our present moment in the context of the turbulent history that has formed all our countries and that has allowed us to be here. And we appreciate you thinking about your history and your relationship to this region with us. We are back in rehearsal. Thanks to those of you who came and joined us for Our Wilderness, Eugene O'Neill's play that opened our season. It was truly a joyous reunion to see many of you in the lobby and in the theater. A special thank you to those of you who mentioned having toasted with us on Seen and Heard through the pandemic. So I hope you're back and grateful for the fact that we got to see you in person as well. It's truly a gift to be back in the theater, and none of us are taking it for granted. So tonight we're going to talk about our next play, our holiday offering. It's A Wonderful Life. And we have an amazing cast and a wonderful Foley artist. And we'll explain what a Foley artist is. And we'll let you meet the cast and hear them speak about this project. So It's a Wonderful Life started as a Christmas card. And one person wrote the story, sent it out, and we of course know it because of Frank Capra turning it into a movie with Jimmy Stewart. So I'm sure that is how it is all familiar to all of you. I want to read just a little excerpt before we jump in. And this is from an interview with Frank Capra that I think both connects us to Veterans Day and to this production. So these are Frank Capra's words in an interview for the American Film Institute. It was my first picture after being in the Army for about 5 years. I was scared to death. I had not looked through the eyepiece of a camera and looked at an actor in all that length of time. What would my first film be about? It certainly wasn't going to be about war. I had my belly full of war, and I came out a terrific pacifist. So what would it be about? There was this story. Man was a failure, was given the opportunity to come back and see the world as it would have been had he not been born. And he finds out no man is a failure. Well, my goodness, this thing hit me like a ton of bricks. I had never heard or seen this plot used, in which a man was allowed to see how his little world would have been had he not been born. This was to me novel, new, and a wonderfully humane way of pinning this idea down, of the importance of the individual, which has always been a main theme of all my films. That is very much how we felt about It's a Wonderful Life and welcomed it in this incarnation, which we'll talk more about in a moment, to our stage. I'm first going to welcome on my co-director, Rachel Alderman. We can also speak about the magic of co-directing. Hi, Rachel. Thank you for being here after a long day of rehearsal.
Hi. Good evening.
Yeah, really cool. It's really wonderful. What's really wonderful is to be doing Seen and Heards with all of you and talking about a production that we hope you'll come see in a few weeks. So it's wonderful to be out of the hypotheticals.
Oh, yes.
In true Seen and Heard form, we're going to start with a scene. So I'm going to invite our terrific actors to turn on their cameras, and our Foley artist, Lear Leary, will introduce everyone in a moment. But first, hello all. Thank you for joining. Hello, fabulous people. Let's jump in just with the excerpts. Evan, can you get closer to your camera, my love? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Don't you all miss Zoom theater? Aren't you so happy to be on Zoom again? That was a joke. Okay. So Rachel and I are going to turn off our cameras, and you're just going to hear a little excerpt of It's a Wonderful Life. Enjoy.
Evan, your mic is off.
We're starting with Joseph or George there?
With Joseph.
Okay.
George worked for his father, saving enough to see him through university. That summer, though, he was going to Europe. George got a job on a kettle boat and was ready to do a little traveling before college. Old man Gower surprised him with a gift of a great big suitcase. On his way home from the store, he ran into his friends Ernie, the cab driver, and Bert, the cop.
Hey, Ernie.
Hiya, George.
Hi, Bert.
Hey, George, what's a suitcase for?
I'm a rich tourist today. How about driving me home in style?
Sure, Your Highness. Hop in the cab. And for the carriage trade, I puts on my cap. Good afternoon, Mr. Bailey.
Who's that?
Why, that's Violet Bick.
The little girl from the candy counter?
That's right.
Looks like you're ready to get out of here.
Hello, Violet. Hey, you look good. That's some dress you got on there.
Oh, this old thing? Why, I only wear it when I don't care how I look. See you later. How would you like to...
Yes.
Want to come along, Bert? We'll show you the town.
No, thanks. Think I'll go home and see what the wife's doing.
Family man.
George saved up money to go away to college. His bags were packed, and he was all set to go.
And that's where we're stopping. Sorry, I was slow on the turning on the camera. Thank you all for being here. It's just a little teaser. And we also, I want to say that listening, and maybe we should also make him a panelist, is Joe Landry. Joe, I see your name in our participants. So if you'd like to join us as well, we welcome you to chat with us. So I am going to open it to all of you. This is It's a Wonderful Life, a radio play, which is actually not a radio play. It pretends to be a radio play while it's performed live on stage by all of you. So I don't know if, I see Joe coming on. Yay. Hi, Joe. You're making me seasick. Okay, we're
Hello.
good.
Sorry.
That's all right. That moving camera thing. If I can ask, would any one of you like to speak to what it's like doing, a radio play that's actually a staged version of a radio play? What has that experience been like? Jerry or Shireen or Evan or Jenny or Michael, any one of you? And we're going to turn to Lear in a minute about what it means to be a Foley artist. But what has it been like to be doing a radio play? Jenny, you unmuted, so I'm turning to you.
Great. Okay. Well, I have this delightful privilege of playing multiple characters. So as an actor and an improviser, getting to play multiple characters, including that character that is walking into the radio station. So you have so many things to mine, and getting just the sort of like so many layers to theater is like what you're seeing on the surface, what you're hearing. That's just been so fun. And I love this cast. I love the directorial, but I love this cast.
Michael, go ahead.
Well, I do. One of the things I've always loved is hearing plays read, because it turns on my imagination. And I think what's really fun for the audience is for us playing it as a radio play, is they get to turn on their imaginations to the nth degree and try to join. We all try to join in some kind of joyful playfulness of creating these characters and getting to see what we want to see as the audience gets to see it. So I love that about it.
Wonderful. Rachel, is this, I mean, when you first started thinking about us directing this together and we put together this cast, how much of what is happening on stage in terms of the many voices and many characters and the staging, how much had you thought about, and how much do you feel like we're coming up with in the room?
Well, what I was hoping for, and I said this on the first day, was really just a joyful celebration of live theater and people being in space together, because it had been since, I mean, I hadn't been in a rehearsal room since Christmas Carol 2019. So to get back in a space in a show that celebrates storytelling was just the biggest gift. So I had thought, along with all of our conversations, Melia, about all the different layers of the show, the fact that there's these actors putting on a radio play and then dropping into the town of Bedford Falls and the beautiful story that is It's a Wonderful Life, but how that was all going to come to fruition. We knew we needed this amazing ensemble to give themselves over to all of these characters and all of these voices to really see how that was going to work out in our space on their feet. And it's been really beautiful to watch everybody kind of bring themselves to the room and then play with all of their creativity.
It's very much, Jenny, it's what you said. Rachel and I kept saying, it's just all about the actors. It's all about the actors. They will make it really dynamic.
Yeah, that's going to be the key. Mm-hmm.
And thank goodness we have all of you. Lear is our Foley artist. Lear, do you want to explain what a Foley artist is? And then I'll turn to Joe for why the radio play construct.
Sure, I'd love to, especially since it's named after a Long Islander named Jack Foley, who had a hard time getting work in show business, tried everything from acting to stunt work to everything. And then he was luckily out on the West Coast when they were, the talkies started, and they needed to enhance some of the silent films, and or certainly in the old days when they would mic the actors maybe on horseback that couldn't get the hoofs. So he would do the hoofs with coconuts. We all saw Monty Python. But it evolved into an art form, and Foley himself became so famous that when other studios were saying, come on, we got to get somebody like Foley. Well, I can do Foley. I'm a Foley artist, and that's where the term came from. It has now evolved, of course, into motion pictures and everything like that. But in the radio days, he or she was a character who had a table full of stuff, from wash basins to clocks to car horns. And I mean, you saw some of the things that I just fiddled with. And when you come to the theater, you'll see the table full of stuff. And it's just interwoven. I talk about how these guys, the rest of the Brady bunch here, does all of the acting and beautiful voice work. And in your mind, if you close your eyes, you're going to just see the play. All of a sudden, the play is going to morph. But the whole time, my job is to add a little bit of chrome on top of this beautiful vehicle that they have constructed. Foley artist is nothing more than the guy just in the background making noise to fill in some of the scene changes and stuff like that. And I got started because of a lonely childhood. I stayed in my room and made noises all by myself.
And on that note, I feel like Oh, sorry, Rachel, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, well, when we were talking about the Foley aspect of this, along with our great sound designer, Fred Kennedy, we were talking about needing someone who would have a real buffet of options. And Lear did. He showed up with his buffet table of noises and more creativity and imagination to go with it. So it's been really fun to watch him create.
Awesome.
Well, I'm nothing more than you guys, our patrons who are also on this broadcast, because I just get to watch these guys weave this tale, and you're going to be very surprised.
It's pretty
That's all
cool.
I have to say.
Joe, let me just quick turn to you. So grateful you could join us, and wondering what you've spoken about this before, and it's just great to hear you about the radio play and this film and what your idea was there.
Oh, sure thing. It's my pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you all very much. I grew up with this film from when I was a teenager, and I first adapted it as a regular sort of full stage version, and then I readapted it as a radio play. The reason for that was realizing that it's sort of its period. It's sort of set during the golden age of radio, and being able to adapt it was just such a fun challenge. And it's been done a number of times over the years now, but it's been a really cool experience as far as figuring out how it's very adaptable. It's almost like a recipe or a directions or something like that, where it's sort of like,
Right.
here's like, but it's every production is very different, and I'm very excited with what you're doing at Hartford, and I'm so grateful to be part of this.
Well, we're very grateful because Joe is really allowing us to make it very specific to this community and this city, which has been a treat. So thank you. I'm going to turn to the cast and ask, reading even what Frank Capra wrote about 5 years of not staring at a camera or talking to an actor, I know it's completely different. And yet it's, we're not fully out of the pandemic, but there was a long stretch where none of us got to be in a room together. I'm wondering for some of you, or if anyone wants to speak to what it's like to be back in a rehearsal room. Is this your first rehearsal room back, or what is it like to be doing this again? Jenny, were you gonna say something? Oh no, sorry, I missed
Jump
it.
in. It is my first.
Oh, go, Shireen.
Hi, everyone.
Is it? Yeah.
It's my first time back in the theater space. I've been honored and lucky to work behind this, work in front of a camera during some of this time, but to be back in the theater, I think I was sharing this with Jerry the other day about working behind a mask and how you have to kind of work through the mask almost as if you're wearing a Commedia dell'arte mask or one, a theatrical mask to work through that, to try and get some of, hope you get this. This is what I'm trying to do with this. But the difficulty of doing that was one of the things that I found very challenging. And then also having conversations behind the mask and then without the mask. And there's something about the security of having a mask where you don't have to, you don't feel the pressure of having to smile all the time. You can just listen and be present. But then the moment the mask is off, you feel you have to convey that you're with that person or that you're listening by showing facial expressions and what that means. So
That's so interesting. That's such a great point. The sort of the relief a bit of being hidden. To clarify for those of you at home, where we're rehearsing with masks, all of us, and then when we run large sections or we do a whole run through of the piece, then the actors take off their masks. But this is a bit the longest amount of time we've all had without our masks looking at each other, and it's funny that it's virtual.
Yes, if I may jump in.
Gary,
Oh, I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Michael.
Yeah,
Were you going to say something? Just to piggyback on what Shireen said, for a long time, I didn't know what my fellow castmates. Hello, first of all, everybody. Thank you for being here. A pleasure. Thank you for having me here too, or having us. And I just want to say that I didn't know what people's faces looked like for a very long time. When someone would catch a sip of water, I'd try to sneak a peek and say, what do they look like? It's like, what do they look like now? Because we see pictures, but it was a little awkward at first for me and my brain. But then also just re-entry into a room with people and having to socialize again in this kind of setting is unsettling at first, but it's been an interesting process to get back into. And it's I guess it's like riding a bicycle, sometimes you have to fall several times to relearn how to ride your bike, which I've done plenty of. But but it's been fun so far to be back in a room with a bunch of wonderful artists, and it seems like a great community so far. So thank you.
Thank you. Michael, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was only going to say that I didn't know Evan had a mustache, but he told me the only reason he got hired was because of the mustache. So
Totally true. Totally true. It was
There
all
is
about the mustache.
something about mustaches in particular with both Evan and Jerry and Lear where you're like, oh, right, because we don't see that in rehearsal. Evan, over to you. What's it been like to be at Hartford Stage?
It's been great. I mean, it's great to be back here. I was here 4 years ago, and I'm just really happy to be back.
Tell us about when you were last here. What was the show you did here 4 years ago?
I was doing Murder on the Orient Express. It was a Ken Ludwig play directed by Emily Mann. We did it at the McCarter. Then we brought it here and had
It
a
was
few
very beloved production. I've heard much about it, even though I wasn't here. So
yeah, we had a good time. And there was, the star of the show was the set, which was the train, and it broke down a few nights, and that was fun. I don't think we're going to have that problem with this show. I think we're pretty safe. I'm having fun in this one. I like both doing a radio play where I don't have to do too much with my body and my face, at least in the first half. And also wearing a mask is also another nice way to hide. But I do feel like I'm yelling through my mask a lot. And when we get the mics, I'm going to have to tone everything way down because I'll have the mask off, the mustache in full effect, and I'll be screaming into the mic. So I'll leave it to you, Melia and Rachel, to reel me back in.
We will. Shireen, you were here at Hartford Stage before. Do you want to share that history with us?
Yeah. How many years ago? I think it was 10. It was with Darko doing The Tempest, playing Ariel. And that too, the set was almost the thing by itself. It was quite a set to work on, especially having the joy of climbing on the walls because it was a bookcase, a library. And so to climb the walls, every show I always look forward to doing that. So yeah, that was a wonderful experience. And to be back in Hartford and see how much has changed, but at the same time, how much has stayed the same in a different aspect. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful to be back.
We love having you all here. Rachel, company, all of you, just curious, what about this story speaks to you? And we've talked a little bit, in the room about what our relationship is to this particular story, but just curious if any of you want to speak to that.
I'll just say that in listening to it and watching you all work on it, I knew it was relevant. I knew it was important. I knew it was a beautiful story about humanity and community. But once the words are in your bodies and coming from your experiences, and as I sit back and watch, I realize just how necessary this story is for right now. And there's certain words and phrases or moments that just lift right out of the room and kind of speak to me in this particular pandemic moment about what we yearn for, what we miss, what we want, what we could lose. And when we kind of get woken up to what we want and want to protect. So I've had a bunch of moments where I'm just kind of I'm thinking I'm working, and then a line or someone tries a new way of a new intention on a line, or there's a new staging and something leaps up at me, and I the hair on my arm stands on end, and I'm like, oh, that's the key to this show. That's why we're doing it. And I've had a lot of moments like that, and I think it's only gonna intensify as we add tech to it next week, and the lights and the sound, because it speaks to us right now.
I've always been really moved by the story, and I found myself, and I think I've shared this with all of you, but feeling how true it is to Hartford Stage at this moment, given that it's a community that saves an institution. That the Bailey building and loan is saved by the community. And it's thanks to, we see it through the eyes of George Bailey, but that, we feel a kind of sense of this being a Valentine to you all, to our community here, who have really gotten Hartford Stage back on its feet.
Well, for me, I think it's what speaks to me a lot is the humanity. It's like it speaks to the better angels of our nature, more than anything, and how we as a society could come together with heart and support, especially now after this, what we've all been going through collectively around the world. I think that for me speaks the most, just getting into the greater good of humanity, of human beings, I think is big. And I call this play Creeper, because it starts off and then it just kind of creeps up on you in the end. You're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? You're sobbing and making these ugly faces because you're crying. Yeah. So yes.
How many characters are each of you playing? Like, how many different voices? Some of you more than others, right? Evan, you had a good line today in rehearsal around this question. We added a line to Evan's character, and it came out in a different character's voice. Do you have any sense of how many different voices each of you are using?
Well, I found out today I really only have 2 voices.
That's not true. Not true.
I'm playing I think I'm playing like 10, maybe 10 or 11 characters. Yeah.
Some of them only have 1 line, but man, do you make those lines count? They leave.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jenny, go ahead.
I think I have like 9 or 10. I was starting to write them down too, and then I'm like, oh, that's what. Oh, that, and then I'm coming in. Yeah, so it's like 9 or 10 fun.
There are 48 in the script, correct, Joe?
He's counting. Look at this. He's looking down the list.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think Michael takes the prize for having to play maybe multiple in a row. Is that?
And Michael, you have the distinct honor of being in more scenes with yourself than any other actor.
That's right. That's
nobody wants to act with me.
So tell us about what that's like.
Well, that's it's tremendous fun. It's always that kind of, I'm going to try something impossible. Maybe I'll make it. Maybe I won't. We'll see how it goes. And I love I don't think anything's worth being on stage unless failure might be an end result of it. So it's a great challenge. And I think we're all feeling the challenge of doing this, and to make it exciting, which it is. And like you said, the Creeper, having been doing the holiday show for a while here at Hartford Stage.
Which I want to ask you about, yeah.
I really miss the community, the people who come. For the last 2 years has been like a huge hole. And I didn't know, just like when I started doing Christmas Carol, I hadn't read, I'm too sardonic and a cynic to like, and then these shows are so dark, and because they're so dark, they're really talking about humanity and all its total beauty. And what happens at the end of the redemption of George Bailey is a beautiful, it's such a beautiful moment. And it reminded me a lot of Scrooge. of his redemption and his reintegration into the community again. And I think that is what we're doing here, is reintegrating theater into this incredibly strong theater community that's been coming out and supporting this holiday show for so many years. And I love that I have a chance to look at it in a different way.
We love, I mean, we love having Michael Preston in this cast for many reasons, but I will say that you bring with you, how many years have you participated in A Christmas Carol at Hartford Stage?
I think it's 10, I think, or 11, 10 or 11.
Rachel, and how many years have you been at the helm of A Christmas Carol at Hartford Stage?
I came back in 2015, and then I led the charge in 2016. And then last year, you know, we leapt in with our community carol as a way to stay connected. So it's been a real part of my holiday fabric for a while. Babies have been born since then. You know, people have gotten engaged. It's like it's a real part of the cycle of life here.
Right. It has been such a important part of the fabric of Hartford Stage, and we are grateful to all of you, especially those of you who have really loved A Christmas Carol, that you understand the challenges of this pandemic year, and that we're thrilled to, as Michael says, bring another story of redemption and light in the dark to this community.
Yeah, I counted it up, and to do A Christmas Carol, there's about 73 people just including cast and crew backstage, something like that. So
Yeah.
So for the safety and health and wellness, this is a good, healthy choice right now.
Plus, we get this whole new group of people and
sure.
some familiar faces to join us on this journey. I neglected to say this earlier. I was a little thrown at the start, and do want to encourage you to put questions in the chat so that you can you can join in the conversation with the actors and with Joe and Lear and Rachel and myself. So do feel free to use the chat feature for that. One of the questions that I've had people ask me, and I just wonder how you all feel about it, is, do you turn to the film as a reference? What does it feel like to be playing a part that's been made iconic by an actor a long time ago, really in some, in a completely different context, and yet, we know that the photo of Jimmy Stewart surrounded by his family at the Christmas tree, which we'll put in the information on the program for those of you who come. It's kind of amazing. It was the cover of Newsweek magazine in 1946. Was the cover of Newsweek magazine, was the Christmas photo of this very, perfect American family. So thoughts about that, or any of you looking to the film? Yeah, Shireen, go ahead.
Well, at this point, for those who are joining us this evening, everyone in the cast knows that it's my holiday tradition. My mom and I, for the last 5 years, have watched this movie every holiday. So for me, I found it very difficult in the sense of knowing the story, but trying to connect it from my perspective, from my point of view, but having just it being on the mic, at least for most of it, allowed me to really connect to what the ideas were behind what was being said, if that makes any sense.
It
So
does.
if
Great
I
stuff.
can follow, okay, I know what they're trying to get across in that scene. So how can I convey that through the mic? And that's what I found both rewarding, but also challenging, because I kept hearing how certain things were being said in the movie, and trying to really make it my own.
Right.
Was
Like Donna
challenge.
Reed is in the back of your head, not, going.
Yes. So at the moment we get to Should I say what it is called? But no, actually I won't. I'll leave it. I'll leave it as a secret. But when we get to that section, then I really feel that I get to come through because now I get to inhabit her physically and wholly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are really celebrating the act of storytelling on a stage. So it's a radio play that becomes a stage play in a sense. I mean, just by its nature, because you have this wonderful cast on stage in front of you. So,
I was going to
um,
say that I come from the complete opposite of the spectrum. I hadn't seen the movie until well into rehearsals. I hadn't seen it. I don't know the Life magazine poster of the
Newsweek,
oh,
let's be
Newsweek.
clear.
Sorry,
Just, for the fact checkers out
yeah,
there, Jenny,
Newsweek.
I'm looking at you.
Real news is Newsweek. So yeah, I came from it from a completely different angle, and I thought I still probably shouldn't have watched, but I watched the movie finally. So and it's a wonderful, wonderful movie. Does a great job. Jimmy Stewart is amazing, and I know what I'm going to be judged against. So, there you go.
That our hope is not actually that sentence, but
All right,
yeah,
sounds
I
good.
mean, it's a very different, right? We're in no way aspiring to emulate the movie, right, Rach? That's not.
No. We're making it, it's the story, the essence of the story, all the beloved characters, but it's very firmly our own. Which leads to great discoveries and surprises that if you haven't seen the movie, you get to enjoy in a different way. And if you have seen the movie, you'll kind of enjoy being enveloped by it.
Right. You have inside information if you've seen the movie, but you don't need to have seen the movie,
Right.
nor remember the movie to join us on this particular journey. Jenny, go ahead. Yeah.
I was convinced I had seen the movie. I thought I did.
I love this. Yeah. Share this. Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, have I? And so I put it on, and I'm like, because everybody has seen scenes from it, the stills and Jimmy Stewart and everything. And I watched it. I'm like, I don't know this movie, or I don't know all of it. And I'm like, well, I still know the end. It's not going to get me. I bawled like a baby. It's such a beautiful story. And in terms of like how it helped or inspired or anything related to my particular characters, I think one of the things it helped inspire or get to be so excited by is the idea of 40s and radio and a clip and a type of speech pattern to play with and be inspired by, and just let that inform the various choices. I'm always going different than the character, but to be just inspired by this almost celebratory quickness that is this radio conversation that I have now fallen in love with. So that was my journey with the movie.
Yeah, Michael.
Well, I did know it hit me. I also didn't. I'm not sure. I saw it 2 nights ago, all the way through, and it surprised me completely. But it really made me think of the people who made it, and it made me think of my father, because my father, it's Veterans Day, and he was on an amphibious tank first on Omaha Beach, and I grew up with that generation, and that generation had been through a lot. And sometimes I feel like they've been through a whole bunch, and the totality of humanity in that movie is incredible. And I think we've been through a lot the last couple of years, not the same thing, but there's a sense of depth that I think as a community we can explore that's perhaps different and new for us as a group.
I love you saying that. I mean, we were very struck. No, Rachel, in our work and with dramaturg Zoe Golub-Sass of researching Jimmy Stewart and Frank Capra's point of view. They both served in World War II. As I read that excerpt from Frank Capra, and how much they didn't want to make they did not want to make a war movie, right? We have at around that time The Best Years of Their Lives and other movies that really were dealing with the effects of the war. And then you have these two folks coming back and saying, no, here's the way to move forward. So it's kind of interesting. And it is but in a way, its celebration of each individual is is a way of thanking veterans and of celebrating the humanity that survives past these traumas, maybe.
Right.
But Lear, were you going to say something? Sorry.
No, I'm just taking it all in. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm fiddling with-
I look at all, yeah, exactly. I look at all the squares to see holiday traditions. I mean, do you know what, are there other holiday traditions around plays, movies, or books for any of you? And the silence is deafening.
I recommend one more movie,
Okay.
Imitation of Life, the late 40s version, not the 30s, or at least the one that I watch is the late 40s, early 50s.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I think that's another wonderful story. I don't know if you want to watch it during the holidays, but it's a beautiful movie that I tend to watch during the holidays.
What do you all think? I mean, what makes it specifically this production, and Rachel and Joe, we still have to show you some of these things, but what specifically makes it Hartford centric? Do you guys think? What are things, and I guess, you know, Michael and Rachel, as two folks who've been here longer than our guest artists, but what are things that you think make it speak to Hartford?
I think it's a reflection of our community, the variety of voices that are in this, the fact that it's a radio play and there's so many different voices in it, and we're really celebrating this moment where we're kind of re-emerging, and the way that we are approaching the arc of the play in terms of celebrating this ensemble as actors layered with all these different characters that they play, that all these people can touch all these different aspects of humanity and all the different people that they play.
Right.
That it's a real reflection of just the collective community that comes to Hartford Stage during the holiday season, if that makes sense. This is a great question, and as we go through there's different parts of the play that I feel are the essence of Hartford, if that makes sense. Like as we get to different things, I'm like, oh, that feels like a Hartford moment. And I think I would invite everyone to come see it, to know what is the essence of that.
It's almost like we want to ask this question of our audiences.
Yeah.
What made you think of Hartford while you watched the show? Joe, did you want to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to compare the Bedford Falls, the fictional town of the film, and that comparison to Hartford, and also the connection of obviously Clarence and Tom Sawyer and Mark Twain, and that connection to Hartford.
That's right.
I don't know what we've made of that, so let me know.
Oh, yes.
Evan, do you want to jump in on that and explain what Joe's referring to? That's wonderful.
Yeah. Do you want me to give away the joke?
No.
Joe,
Just maybe,
there's
what
another
is it that
joke.
Clarence, go ahead. We
No,
learn what-
Clarence, when he is summoned by Joseph to come learn about George and what's going on down on Earth, he's reading Tom Sawyer. And I believe, I don't know how long he's been reading it. I think it's taking him a while to get through
we
it.
did do the math on this, Joe, because we were like, wait, how old is Clarence? Is he reading like the first edition because it just came out? And then we realized, no, Clarence was born in the 1680s. So
Yeah.
so Tom Sawyer's not a new work, but of course Mark Twain is a famous Hartford resident, so that resonates in many ways for us.
Yeah, and he comes up, Mark Twain comes up, I mean, the book comes up, what, 3 or 4 times, and we actually mention Mark Twain, and it's, if you're from Hartford, if you know Hartford, it's hard not to make the connection that his house is here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the Mark Twain Museum is a wonderful place to visit. We encourage on a day off that everyone should go.
The radio studio that we're doing it in is set in Hartford, and
That's right.
And there's a great Hartford in 1946 was a lot was happening here in Hartford.
So, well, so come join us on this front. Yes, Lear.
There's a great question here. What ages would you recommend for the show?
Yep,
Children? Question mark.
We were just going there.
Oh,
Absolutely.
okay.
So what do you all think? I mean, Chris, because to me, it's such a family show. And it's even more fun in some ways than the film in most ways, in my mind, because you've got you get to watch actors playing while telling the story. But what do you all think? Rachel, how old are your kids and are they coming?
So I've got a 5 and I've got an 8-year-old, and I definitely think, depending on your the temperament of your elementary school child, I do think that you can maybe go as young as 7 or 8, because I do think that there'll be a lot for them to see visually and hear, and the story is so playful. The way we're doing it is so joyful and playful. So I do think that that they would have a really great time. So 7 for 2nd grade and up, potentially. I would say go for that.
There's no sex or violence on stage. No weapons, no gunshots.
Just a lot of playfulness and celebration. So yeah. I'm gonna bring my kids.
Yeah. There's a great question. Thank you, Rick, for this question. That I started with Frank Capra's comments that there's never been a story about what would have happened without an individual having lived, which is interesting, right? That sort of imagining. And I don't know how many of you play this game, but sometimes in my own dark days, you try to imagine, all right, where am I having impact and where am I not? And Michael, you brought up Christmas Carol and the connection to Scrooge and redemption. How do you think this story then is different? What is it that Capra is seizing on It's a Wonderful Life, and that is clearly has grabbed so many people that this story stays so relevant, as relevant as Christmas Carol?
Yeah, I mean,
they're interesting. They are different.
Yeah. I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off? No. There's 3 ghosts that come down. He gets to see his childhood, he gets to see the present, he gets to see the future in which he's dead, but which, and a lot of bad things are in the future. But it doesn't take the time to really consider the whole, if you hadn't existed at all. And I think that's the kind of wonderful, your effect, your unknown effects on people and your own humanity and life is the worthwhile, that being worthwhile and making a difference to people that you never consider. And that's really incredibly, it doesn't skimp. It shows his brother Harry would have died at the age of 9 when he fell through the ice.
Something that he doesn't even think about anymore.
Doesn't, right. His in the original story, Mary marries a man who's not a very good husband. And, it's like, there's a lot of like the ambiguity of being alive is really present, and really kind of the joy, or watching Jerry do it, the joy of finding out that he's back in the present and alive is just, it's moving. It's so moving to me to hear that and hear somebody have a chance to get his life back on track. We all want that. We all want it for everybody and for ourselves. And it is in that it's a little like, the effect is a little like Christmas Carol to me, is that it ends up in community and it ends up with the person having learned something.
In Christmas Carol, we learned that, your cruelty can have an effect that goes deep. But in It's a Wonderful Life, we learned that the absence of your kindness and your humanity can have a detrimental effect if your warmth isn't there. It's almost like it.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so well said. And we also learn that there are things you don't clock in your own life that you're doing. Whereas there's an intentionality in Christmas Carol of here are the places where you haven't done the right thing. And in It's a Wonderful Life, here are all the places, Jerry, where you didn't pay attention at all the things you did do that were better than you realized. So it kind of speaks to our blindness to our own journeys, which I think we find moving.
our blindness to our own life force, and how if we could wake up to that, if we could not take ourselves for granted, how much goodness could we
Right.
harness?
And we'll admit this, I think, or I'll admit this and see if you all agree, that as theater people, this has to be a story that's precious to us because we make plays that come and go. And we rarely know if it's made any difference that we did a play, and we don't know who remembers what. And there's a gift in this story of saying to all of us and to all of you out there, for all the things you do that evaporate, because fundamentally everything we do does, right? That there is a value to what we've made and what we've done. So I'm looking at the clock. We're good about keeping these things to an hour. And we're going to continue, as we always do, with a tradition of a poem. I've asked these brilliant people to read the poem with us, for us. I have to do a shout out to the amazing playwright James Still, who sent this poem to me many, many, many Thanksgivings ago. And so thank you, James, for having shared this with your circle, your ever-growing community. And he sent it every Thanksgiving, and every Thanksgiving I'm struck. It is, believe it or not, people, it's 2 weeks till Thanksgiving. And you might be as shocked by that information as I am. But in honor of our gratitude to all of you and the holiday and the themes of It's a Wonderful Life, here we have Let Us Give Thanks by Max Coots.
Let us give thanks for a bounty of people, for children who are our second planting. And though they may grow like weeds and the wind too soon blows them away, may they forgive us for our cultivation and remember fondly where their roots are.
Let us give thanks for generous friends with hearts as big as Hubbard's and smiles as bright as their blossoms, for feisty friends as tart as apples, for continuous friends who, like scallions and cucumbers, keep reminding us we've had them.
For crotchety friends as sour as rhubarb and as indestructible. For handsome friends who are as gorgeous as eggplants and as elegant as a row of corn. And the others, as plain as potatoes and so good for you.
Or funny friends who are as silly as Brussels sprouts and as amusing as Jerusalem artichokes, and serious friends as complex as cauliflowers and as intricate as onions.
For friends as unpretentious as cabbages, as subtle as summer squash, as persistent as parsley, as delightful as dill, as endless as zucchini, and who, like parsnips, can be counted on to see you throughout the winter.
For old friends, nodding like sunflowers in the evening time, and young friends coming on as fast as radishes. For loving friends who wind around us like tendrils and hold us, despite our blights, wilts, and witherings.
And finally, for those friends now gone, like gardens past that have been harvested, but who fed us in their times that we might have life thereafter. For all these we give thanks.
Thank you all. That was wonderful. And we invite you to raise a hand in the chat or play something so we can turn your camera on if you want to join us for the toast. We'd love to see your faces. Yes, Yes, Jenny's, I hope getting something. Everyone, I hope you have something to toast with. I'm turning from the seltzer to the good stuff. So yeah, here we all go. Rachel, did you get something? Nah, she got headphones. Yeah. So if you'd like to join, please put in a note, right? Raise your digital hand. That's the language. I knew I'd lost the language. So we welcome you all to toast with us. I'll say, of course, as you're all coming on, just remind you that we want to see you at the theater, right? Stay tuned in your inbox for more details. We start performances November 26th and run through December 26th. Yay! Beautiful faces. Hello, hello, all. Lovely to see you all. Give everyone just a minute more to join us. Hello, David Klein.
Oh, David.
We give thanks for your health, your ongoing recovery, David Klein. All right. Well, as we approach Thanksgiving and as we get ready to share our second production with you, as they say in this wonderful play, no person is a failure if they have friends. And the same is true of institutions. So we thank you all for being friends of Hartford Stage, making us the success that we are. And let's all raise our glasses to Hartford and the city and this community. So
Here.
cheers.
Cheers.
Yay.
Cheers.
To a wonderful life and to seeing you all in the theater. Thank you, Cass. Thank you, Lear. Thank you, Joe, for joining us. See you in the lobby. Be well. Good night, all.
Good night,
Right on
everybody.
time. Look at that. 7:59.
Turn the kids.
So,
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good
good
night.
night. Good night.
See you in a
Thank you
couple
so
weeks.
much. Be well.